All right, let's get to know a little bit more about the Purdue Boilermakers from a guy who knows the team really well, covered the Big Ten for a really long time. One of my favorites in the Big Ten, Tom Dienhart of Purdue Rivals. Appreciate your time, Tom. How you doing, man?
I'm doing excellent, and yeah, looking forward to another cannon battle. I've seen a lot of these over the years, Jeremy. Of course, Purdue has had Illinois' number, but boy, I wouldn't be shocked if maybe the Illini can flip that script on Saturday.
Yeah, 13 of 17 they've won, Tom. And I always talk about these programs like they're sister schools, right?
Yep.
There's so much similarities between both of them. They're kind of basketball schools, right?
Yep.
That football is just competitive. Here you go, Tom. Huge November game in Champaign with Big Ten West title implications. Illinois can go a lot further than Purdue in winning the Big Ten West this weekend, but still, Purdue, after back-to-back losses, if they win this one, they kind of control their own destiny for the most part.
Yeah, they're going to need some help. They sort of blew their ability to control their destiny last week, Jeremy. They got sat on by Iowa over here at Ross-Ade Stadium, 24-3. Just an evisceration, no other way to put it. Men among boys that day in a strong wind. So yeah, now they need help. But of course, goal number one for Purdue is they got to beat Illinois, right? That's where it begins. And then of course, I don't want to get bogged down in all the scenarios, but Wisconsin and Iowa obviously are still involved too, along with Illinois and Purdue. So if Purdue wins, it certainly would give them a decent shot. Maybe that they still would need help with losses by Illinois, and of course the winner of the Wisconsin-Iowa game would need to lose too. So they've still got something to play for. Is a real long-winded way to put it.
Still, Illinois and Purdue, who have never won the West, are in the mix to win the West.
And
So
it's November.
that's right. That's right. So Purdue starts the year off really well for the most part, especially during conference play. But what has changed the last 2 weeks going up against the two teams we thought would win the West, Wisconsin and Iowa?
I think that's a good reason why it's kind of gone off the rails for Purdue, Jeremy, who they've played. The two best teams in the West, probably, right? I know the issues for Wisconsin and Iowa have been well documented. We all know the punchline Iowa had become offensively, and the issues Wisconsin had with the coaching change too. But as you know, they sort of seem to have things on track now, right? They're hitting their stride in November. So I think that was part of Purdue's issues, playing quality opponents. And if they look in the mirror, Purdue does, Jeremy, defensively, the secondary, it's melting down. There's no other way to put it. They're really struggling to stop big pass plays. I think there's a confidence issue, a crisis of confidence, if you will. Blown coverages, miscommunication, poor tackling. And then offensively, Aiden O'Connell. No big secret, right? Purdue's going to go as far and do as well if Aiden O'Connell's playing well. And he's not played well the last 2 weeks. A combined 5 interceptions, 3 at Wisconsin. And again, the conditions weren't great last week. You know that. It was the same in Champaign as it was in West Lafayette. Purdue still tried to throw it 43 times. But long story short, he struggled once again. So secondary, quarterback, tougher schedule, those three things have really caused Purdue to fall back to the pack and be 5-4 right now.
Aiden O'Connell, you're right. They go as he goes, right?
Yeah.
Like when he's good, they feel like they can almost beat anybody with how he can throw the ball around with Charlie Jones there. But he hasn't been as efficient. What has been the difference for Aiden O'Connell? What happens when he's struggling?
I think sometimes he works too quickly. If you listen to Jeff Braun, maybe he doesn't let receivers fully run their routes. And he struggles to buy time. He's not the most athletic guy in the world. That's no big revelation either. And I'll tell you what, there is no yin to Charlie Jones Yang. There is no number 2 wide receiver. That person, that's somebody has never developed, Jeremy. And it's been a big issue. Everybody knows number 15, Charlie Jones, is the favorite son, that he's going to get all the looks and all the targets. They watch film and he still makes his catches, but there's no big plays. And Purdue's offense, like any offense, is built on getting chunk plays, and they haven't been there. And their inability to stretch the defense has been an issue, and that gets back to the receiving core. Brock Thompson may be back Saturday, Jeremy. He was the MVP of Purdue's win against Tennessee in the Music City Bowl. And if they get him back, maybe he helps that receiving core. But otherwise, guys like TJ Sheffield, Mershon Rice, Dion Burks, Abdul Rahman Yassin, they've not stepped up. It's been Charlie Jones, first, second, and third options. Look at the targets, third in the nation. And they also need more consistency from Payne Durham, their tight end. So I think the inconsistency of the receiving position has also maybe held Aiden back a little bit.
Charlie Jones is really good. They've unlocked something there that Iowa was certainly unable to do. But Devin Witherspoon, the Illinois corner, has shut Trey Palmer down, shut Keon Coleman down. The difference with Michigan State, Tom, was they had another guy in Jaden Reed, like two great receivers. That's why I'm interested to see, how Charlie can do against Devin Witherspoon, who might be an All-American, might be a day 2 draft pick, maybe even higher than that. So what do you think about Charlie Jones? Tell me the story of Charlie Jones and Purdue so far this season.
Yeah, it's where would Purdue be without Charlie Jones, Jeremy? I've thought about that. I'm sure fans have too. My goodness. If you go back, the number one receiver was supposed to be a guy named Milton Wright, who flunked out of school even last December, didn't play in the bowl game, never got eligible in the spring. So his absence hurt. Talked about Brock Thompson's injury, not having him, or only having it for 2 games this year. And yeah, Charlie's been a revelation. This offense would be lost without him. I do think he's very good, Jeremy. He, I don't know, on a good team, though, I don't think he's your number one receiver. A good second or third guy. He's legit fast. He's not very big. He's slight. He is tough, but the one thing, Jeremy, is he came to West Lafayette with lower body issues, and they persist. And he rarely, if ever, practices. They just try to get him from Saturday to Saturday. And that's not an ideal situation. So he's banged up. He's really not practicing either. But again, he shows up and gives what he's got on Saturdays. He had, I think, 10 catches last Saturday, Jeremy, but I think he only averaged about 10 yards a catch. Again, no big plays.
Purdue still doesn't run the ball that often, Tom. But when they run the ball this year, they seem to run it better, right? The yards per carry is up. Devin Mockabee has been a revelation as a walk-on. They seem to have some other solid backs. Do you think Jeff Brom will try to run the ball more? Because it seems like they're better at it this year.
Yeah, I think he regrets not doing it last week, to be honest with you. He said as much in his Monday press conference in those conditions. And the Purdue run game is probably one of the best Brom's had in his 6 years in West Lafayette. He's just he's been a revelation like Charlie Jones, a redshirt freshman. He's a walk-on from Southern Indiana, Boonville. I keep rubbing my eyes and going, is this guy really legit? And I think he's legit. You always wonder about walk-ons, don't you? But he's had 3 100-yard rushing games. There's nothing remarkable, Jeremy, about him physically.
Right.
Size, his speed, but man, watch the film, watch the cuts, watch the elusiveness. And he just makes plays and makes defenders miss. He's tough. So he's somebody you can run the ball with, and I think Brom should use him more. That's not in Brom's DNA. He's not a real patient guy. He wants to throw it all the time and kind of get antsy. But you got to lean on this guy. He's probably the best back he's had. And he does give Purdue at least a legit option to run the ball. And Jeremy, this offensive line, they only play 6 guys. If they have to play anybody beyond 6, they are biting their fingernails. They're worried. These 6 guys have stayed healthy, and you got to give them a little credit too. They've really come together and been a solid group for Purdue.
You mentioned defensively the back half has really struggled, especially the secondary, but this feels like a pretty decent defensive line. Purdue isn't, Karlaftis was great, but outside of him, this hasn't been known as some great defensive line. This looks like a pretty solid group. What have you seen from them?
Yeah, that's the strength of the defense, if not the team, to be honest with you, Jeremy. There is no George Karlaftis, as you said, no superstar, but they play upwards of 10 or 11 guys every week. And that rotation of bodies allows them to stay fresh. As you would suspect, that helps you deep into the second halves, especially against these physical teams like Illinois. So again, a solid group, like I said, a legit 8 to 12 guys that they'll play. And for the most part, they've held up pretty well, Jeremy, but the last 3 games, as this competition's gotten better, it's been more of a struggle. We've seen some big runs. They weren't giving up big runs at all. Iowa had a 75-yarder last week for a touchdown, and we're seeing them not fit their gaps, as coaches like to say. And so again, they've had taken a little step back of late. And Jeremy, here comes Illinois. Here comes Chase Brown. So this will be yet another test for that defensive line.
What has gone so wrong for the secondary and the back seven?
I think injury's been an issue. They lost a guy who was a starter, a safety named Chris Jefferson, left about a month ago to take care of mental health issues. And I think that was a blow. He was a solid player they could count on. And he is not expected to come back at all this year. So I think that's part of it. There have been some injuries too. There are two cornerbacks, actually all three cornerbacks have missed some time with injury this year. The best D-back is one of their corners, number 23, Corey Trice. Watch him. I think he may be a pro, about a 6'3", 210-pound cornerback. Again, he's been solid. And in the safety play, honestly, Jeremy, I talked about the absence of Chris Jefferson with mental health issues. The other two safeties, Sanusi Kane and Cam Allen and Bryce Hampton, are just guys. We actually saw Cam Allen not get to start last week for the first, broke a string of 21 consecutive starts because his play was so poor. So again, I think there's like those guys are struggling to tackle. I just think some of it's really just a talent issue, to be honest with you. And again, then you give up the big plays, your confidence gets shaken, then you get in this vicious cycle. So at this point, I know Tommy DeVito is not Dan Marino, Jeremy, but Illinois has got to be watching this film and going, we got to take some shots against this secondary.
Yeah. Special teams has been a big issue for Illinois. How is Purdue special teams wise?
Just solid, nothing spectacular. The kicker, he's likely to miss a 25-yard field goal, but he's also able to hit a game winner. So sometimes you kind of worry about his consistency. He doesn't have a big leg. He's not a 50-yard guy. And the punter is just solid. They may have to use their backup punter this week. They're the number one guy's got some tendonitis issues. Again, the punting is just okay. The return game, Jeremy, that of course was Charlie Jones' strength. He was the Big Ten return man of the year last year at Iowa. I think his heavy use at Purdue has sort of precluded him to really be a factor in the return game. So again, the return games are just largely average or a non-factor. The coverage has been solid. So again, just this sort of held serve, if you will, in special teams, I guess.
Illinois would take that at this point.
I guess they're not losing games for them.
Yeah. 4-0 Illinois against Big Ten West opponents, 0-2 against Big Ten East. And Purdue, just lost to Iowa and Wisconsin. Illinois kind of built itself similarly. So what do you think of this matchup, Tom? Like who has the advantage here?
Not a good matchup. Purdue's never known as a physical team, Jeremy. You've been around these parts a long time, Illinois, the Big Ten. You know what Purdue usually is offensively. They're not a punchy in the nose team. They practice against that kind of offense too. So you always kind of wonder what type of an edge your defense has. Are they really tough? Can they really be physical against those teams? And most of the time, Purdue can't match up. So I'll be honest, it's not a good matchup for Purdue. As much as I like the Purdue D-line, like I said, Wisconsin and Iowa sort of had their way. I mean, the freshman running back at Iowa had 200 yards last week. Braylon Allen had over 100 yards too. Last year, Jeremy, your freshman running back, this is Josh McCray, had about 150 yards. Chase Brown didn't even play. So long story short, no, I don't think it's a good matchup from a Purdue defense to an Illinois offense standpoint. Now, if you flip it around, I'm not sure if Illinois is seeing an offense or a quarterback like O'Connell. I know O'Connell struggled. I talked about that, but still, we all know he's dangerous, right? We all know there's potential. So that's a matchup Purdue's got to take advantage of, Jeremy. Purdue's got to get a lead if they want to win. If they have to play from behind, and if Illinois is able to hold that ball and just pound you, and eat clock, it's going to look a lot like last week probably for Purdue when they lost 24-3.
Yeah, I think they want to do what Michigan State did, get a lead, make Illinois catch up. They're not really built for that, even though Tommy DeVito did show some good things there. Well, Tom, before I let you go, these are two basketball schools, as they like to say. What do you think of Purdue? I mean, we know Zach Edey, but they lost so much. But Matt Painter still think is one of the best coaches in the Big Ten. It's just the offseason did not go as I think he probably hoped.
Yeah, they were supposed to get the Nigel Pack kid from Kansas State, an Indianapolis kid who they almost got out of high school. And we all know unfolded there with John Carlos Ruiz and Miami. So, they're always good up front, right? You talked about Edey. They love this Trey Kaufman-Wren kid, the redshirt freshman, Caleb First from Fort Wayne. They've got some good guys up front. But, Jeremy, For Purdue, it always comes back to the guard play. They're never elite in the backcourt. And they're probably going to have to start a true freshman point guard, a kid named Braden Smith. Now, everybody's excited about the kid, right? But I don't know if you're going to be ready to play when you start locking horns with these Big Ten teams. How physical can he be? How strong is he? I don't know if he's ready to jump in the deep end just yet. They may have to throw him in the deep end, though. They tried like crazy to get a portal point guard, and they struck out on 4 or 5 guys. They ended up taking a kid from Utah named David Jenkins, who's not really a point guard. He's more of a 2 guard. So my point is, Purdue's going to be solid once again, probably about a 5th place Big Ten team. I think they will make the big dance as maybe a 7 to a 9 seed. But I think when push comes to shove, when you're playing these good teams, can Purdue's guards step up? And when the shot clock's winding down, Jeremy, who can get their own shot for Purdue? Somebody's got to get the ball to Zach Edey. It's all about the guards. And again, going back to Gene Cady, I don't want to make this a diatribe. Going back to Gene Cady, they never have top shelf point guard play.
Tom Dienhart, Purdue, goldenblack.com, part of the On3 network. Tom Dienhart, appreciate you as always, my man.
Hey, I'll see you Saturday, buddy. I always appreciate all you do, Jeremy. And I love coming to Champaign-Urbana. I've been there a million times. And I agree with you. These are like sister cities and sister schools in so many ways.
Appreciate you, Tom.
Take care, buddy.